Writing in English give you the creeps? You hate the idea of writing an academic essay in English, especially if that essay will give you a band score that you need so much? Today on Tea With Me, I'm breaking apart the first task of the IELTS exam. Everything you need to know, everything you need to focus on, the grammar you need to review carefully, and the techniques tips. Writing has never been so easy and so fun to work with. Let's roll! Hello guys! Tea With Me today is taking a deeper look at the first task for the writing session in the IELTS exam. But before we get to the juicy part, like this video, share it with your IELTS prep friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details, tips and hacks for the exam. Now, let's go to work. Let's take a look at this example first. As you can see, the first essay is very technical and requires a specific vocabulary and language structures. Analyzing data from graphs, charts, and tables is not something we usually do in our mother tongue most of the time. So if you are not familiar with this kind of material, you better get familiarized with the graphs, tables, and charts, so you can easily recognize what you have to do on the day of the exam. Regardless of your familiarity with this kind of presentation for information, I am highlighting now everything you need to know to make sure your essay is IELTS good. So now we start understanding all the aspects that are relevant for you when writing this essay. The first thing you need to practice is describing trends. When you analyze data and information from graphs, charts, and tables, they indicate the direction that something took. The sales of an object, for example, or the number of people going to a particular place during the summer. Here are some verbs, adverbs, and vocabulary you can use when describing trends. Fell steadily, rise gradually, the sales fluctuated, the trend was upward, downward, sales dropped slightly, sales of fell, decreased and then leveled off, the sales climbed sharply, the sales declined dramatically, the number of dropped suddenly. When working with this vocabulary, make sure you use a variety of structures in your essay. Take a look at how we can vary the structure of sentences. In other words, how we can say the same thing in two, maybe three different ways. Spice imports from Asia fluctuated wildly over the period. There was a wild fluctuation in spice imports from Asia over the period. The first sentence uses the verb fluctuate and the adverb wildly. The second structure, on the other hand, presents the structure there was with the adjective wild and the noun fluctuation. Two different structures, the same idea. So take notes. The two possible structures are verb and adverb. The percentage of blah blah fell slightly. The number of blah blah dropped sharply. Prices rose steadily. Sales decreased significantly. Production increased dramatically. Note that most of the time, the tense used the simple past, but that may vary according to the data presented, so keep your eyes open on the chart, table, or graph you are presented with on the day of the exam. The second structure is there to be, a, noun, and adjective. There is a slight rise in sales of. There was a gradual fall in the production of. There has been a dramatic drop in the rate of. There will be a steady decline in the number of. Why don't we stop the video now and practice rewriting the following sentences? The answer key is also here for you to check after you finish the exercise. So it's time to stop, work, and check. Some Something else you need to be very familiar with is understanding data. So go online and find the charts, graphs, and tables. Get familiar with them is very important for you. A grammar structure that will be particularly important for you is the comparative and the superlative of the adjectives. So you should definitely watch our Friday video on advanced grammar structures for the comparative of the adjectives, okay? Pay attention here. We have a tendency to fall into the trap of the comfort zone vocabulary. We use again and again and again the same adjectives. We trust these words. We get familiar with them in a way that we forget there is always more than one way to state something in English. Work with your synonyms as well, especially if you are focusing on a high band score for your IELTS. The adjective strong, for example, has dynamic, tenacious, empowered, ambitious, powerful, confident, certain, secure as synonyms. You better step up your game with your adjectives as well. That's important to have a good knowledge of vocabulary. Adjectives are not the only thing you should pay attention to regarding this particular task. Take a look at the adverbs and the adjectives used to compare in the following sentences. Significantly more people voted for the bicycle than the other inventions. The bicycle was chosen by almost as many males as females. Slightly more women than men voted for the bicycle. Many more people can use a computer today than 30 years ago. Substantially less time is now spent doing housework than before. The exhibition about cinema attracted far fewer visitors than expected. Illiteracy is much less common than in previous generations. You can also vary the structure of your statements when writing with adverbs. Take a look. Clearly, the trend is upward. It is clear that the trend is upward. Interestingly, the sales failed to recover. It is interesting that the sales failed to recover. Evidently, investment needs to be increased. It is evident that investment needs to be increased. More importantly, the cost of plasma screens is set to fall. It is more important that the cost of plasma screen is set to fall. After reviewing the comparatives and superlatives, as well as enhancing your adverb skills, we also check comparison and contrast. You will need to compare and contrast the information from the charts, tables, and graphs that you have. So, stop the video again for a few seconds and read the following sentence carefully. Take a look at these sentences and practicing, comparing, and contrasting the information here. There is no other way to actually practice these structures than sitting down with your charts, compare, and contrast. So, here I give you 2 charts. Stop the video, guys. Write down your sentences. Practice is extremely important here. Let's move on now to dividing our information into general and specific. When writing your IELTS essay, use at least one general statement in the middle of your text. Considering you are dealing with the description of data, most sentences you will write are of a specific nature rather than a general one. But let's see if you understand the difference, first of all, between general and specific statements. Take a look at the following statements and tell me if they are general or specific information. You need to make sure you are using the correct kind of information when writing your essay. Far fewer female lecturers, as opposed to male lecturers, are employed at a university, 27 and 75 respectively. We can see that there are considerable differences in the proportion of nationalities in each course. Only 10% of students preparing for their masters attended taught classes. Overall, women were more likely to read novels than men. Students preparing for their doctorate read the greatest number of journal articles. The sales for all 4 companies show similar trends. The pattern for senior lecturers was very different. The vast majority of those students preparing for PhDs read 12 or more journal articles each week. Sentences 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 present general information, while sentences 1, 3, and 8 present specific information. You see, understanding comparatives and superlatives are key to contrast and compare the information you have. If you have doubts regarding this grammar topic, we have advanced grammar video on Friday specifically about comparatives. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any grammar lessons we are presenting here to help you write in your essays. Now let's talk about numbers. You also need to be able to describe proportions using not only numbers but collocations and phrases. Take a look at the following: 33%, 1 in 3, 1/3. 75%, 3/4, 3 out of 4. 26%, about 1 in 4, just over a quarter. 45%, almost half, nearly half, just under 1/2, close to 1/2. Different ways to state the same thing. That's extremely important as well. And also, make sure you work with enhancing your vocabulary skills again. As I told you before, repetition of words is not good for your essay, just as much as a simple language. Take a look. Very big. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority. Very big when used before numbers. You can say a massive 85% or a hefty 85%. Very small is a tiny minority. Not very big when used before numbers. A modest 12%, a mere 15%. Remember to vary the way you express proportions. Combine words, numbers, and collocations. Wow, that's quite the content, right? But I am not done yet. We have a little more to go. So, while you take a deep breath, fill up your bottle of water, get another cup of coffee, like this video, subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss any of these tips and strategies to get the best score that you need. Let's check now something that most students take for granted when writing essays. But it is extremely important, especially when we are analyzing data. It's the concluding statement of your essay. You wrote an entire paragraph, you analyzed, you compared, you contrasted, you described proportion. How do you finish your statement? That described all of the above. Okay? Take a look at these sentences used to conclude description of data. It is clear that the vast majority of people were in favor of school visits between countries. Overall, just over half the people surveyed found the climate in the tropics the most difficult thing to adapt to, with a smaller number naming lifestyle and food. The 3 languages in question, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese, were named as the most important languages after English by about equal numbers of people. To conclude, only a small minority of people felt that the language barrier would prevent the development of cultural links. It is evident that opinions are split almost equally between the 3 options as regards the benefits of joint cultural ventures. We can see that the sentences summarize the main idea of the graph and highlight what is evidently clear as soon as you look at the graph. Word of advice here: pie charts are frequently used to summarize data. Therefore, they can often be used as the basis for concluding statements. Practice with them. Again, practice makes perfect, so keep working on writing about graphs. So far, we have checked data that looked at the past. However, there are times when the question will contain future predictions, like the following graph. As there's no guarantee that these predictions will come true, we cannot use grammar structures like will or going to describe them. Be careful when talking about these predictions. Instead, we must use phrases like this. is expected to, is forecast to, is predicted to, is projected to, is shown to. It is predicted that in 2025, solar energy will provide energy for 500 million buildings worldwide. In 2015, about 25 million buildings are expected to receive energy from wind power. In the future, solar energy is forecast to be a much greater source of energy than wind power. We are checking now that sometimes when describing data from graphs, charts, or tables, we may find ourselves in a path of irrelevant information. Take a look at these sentences here. African languages were seen as easy, which is somewhat surprising when considered the range of languages in Africa. A very well-written sentence indeed, but irrelevant. It's an unnecessary opinion from the writer. The y-axis shows the percentage as the bars contain the numbers about the legend at the bottom. It may seem very fancy and advanced to use the description of the graph, but this sentence is totally irrelevant. It contains unnecessary information about how the bar chart is drawn. How do you know if your sentences are relevant or irrelevant? Irrelevant statements may contain unnecessary opinions, too much data, and unnecessary speculation. Avoid them at all costs. Some final tips you may want to write down for your IELTS Task 1. Self-correction checklist. Vary your vocabulary. Check your spell. Take a closer look at the verb-subject agreement. Make sure your word order is correct. Your goal is to write establishing a clear communication. Use accurate collocations and work with top specific vocabulary. Oh my God, so many details, so much to work with. Maybe you want to watch the video again, take more notes, and use the graphs to practice. Practice is the only way to determine that vocabulary and structures are correctly used here. I hope these tips help you develop and enhance your writing skills for this Task 1 on IELTS. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any IELTS prep videos and any of the Friday Advanced Grammar lessons. Together we go further. So I see you guys next week for the writing part of the essay number 2. Okay? See you!